What up, Fight World? UFC 214 is happening this Saturday. I'm going to give you my quick predictions on some of the fights. We're going to start things off with Curran versus Alexandra Albu. Curran has one win in 5 fights in the UFC and has looked very unimpressive in all of those fights. Albu has a submission victory in her UFC debut and has stopped every single opponent she's ever faced. She's also undefeated. I'm going to go with Albu via second round submission. Next, we're going to move on to Renato Moicano versus Brian Ortega. Moicano is undefeated with one draw. Ortega is also undefeated. I do think Ortega is the better in the stand-up, and I think that would be the difference. I don't see either guy submitting each other or knocking each other out, so I'm going to go with Ortega via decision. Next, we move on to Aljamain Sterling versus Henan Brown, a catchweight fight at 140. Sterling is 2-2 in the UFC, although those are against top-ranked guys. He's looked very good in his last fight, but I don't think Barao is a very good stylistic matchup for him. I'm very iffy on this one, but I'm going to go with Barao via a decision. Next, we got the last fight on the undercard. We got Ricardo Lamas taking on Jason Knight. Jason Knight coming on short notice. Lamas is 2-2 in his last 4 fights. He looked very impressive in those 2 wins over Charles Oliveira and Diego Sanchez. He also looked very bad in those 2 losses to Max Holloway and Chad Mendez. Knight is on a 4-fight win streak, but this is the biggest test of his career. He looked very good in his last fight against Chad Skelly, but he is coming in on short notice. This fight is so hard to call, is also has the closest betting odds. It's a real pick'em fight, but I'm going to go with Lamas via a decision. Moving on to the main card, we got Jimmy Manuel versus Volkan Oezdemir. Both guys are KO artists, so I think it's really about who gets it first. I think Manuel has the better striking defense, plus he has a 4-inch reach advantage. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Manuel via second round TKO or KO. Moving on, we got Robbie Lawler taking on Donald Cerrone. This fight has been in the makings for a long time. Lawler coming off of a long layoff. Cerrone coming off of an injury. Both guys coming off of KO losses. Long story short, I think Lawler is better in the stand-up. And if it's smart, we'll go after Cerrone's body early. I got Robbie Lawler via late TKO in the third. Moving on, we got our first title fight with Cris Cyborg Justino versus Tonya Avenger. Cyborg has an 88% KO rate. She's huge for the division and has been very dominant in pretty much all of her fights. Tonya Avenger is coming in on short notice, moving up in weight, making her UFC debut, and is a huge underdog. Admittedly, I don't know much about Avenger, but despite all of that, I'd be really surprised if she lasts 5 rounds against Cris Cyborg. So I'm going to go with Cris Cyborg Justino, first or second round TKO. Next, we got Tyron Woodley defending his welterweight title against Demian Maia. Woodley is a very strong wrestler, BJJ brown belt, so there's no slouch on the ground. He's extremely explosive and powerful. We know Demian Maia is a human blanket, probably the best BJJ in the whole UFC roster, and we know what to expect from him, but the question is, can Tyron Woodley stop it? Neither guy is really outstanding on the feet. I do think Maia will neutralize Woodley's overhand right by smothering him up close, and I think this will go to distance and will be just as close as Maia versus Masvidal. But I think the judges are going to go the way of Tyron Woodley. So I'm going to go with Tyron Woodley via a close decision. Moving on, we got our main event of the evening. The rematch between Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones. My prediction for this fight, it doesn't happen. I'm serious. I have a feeling that Jon Jones isn't going to be the one who fucks up this time. I have a feeling Daniel Cormier will end up going to the hospital while cutting weight and be forced to pull out. I'm honestly surprised no one else has predicted this. But if I have to predict the fight, if it does happen, I will say that history tends to repeat itself. So I do think I'm going to go with Jon Jones via decision again, although it might be more competitive this time. Anyway, see you Saturday, fight fans.